stubborn husky won't get out of bed. This husky has heterochromia. I wish I had a dog that had heterochromia. I wish I had heterochromia. Different colored. This condition is most oftenly seen in dogs and cats. And in people too. All animals can experience this. All people can experience this. Although it's really uncommon. Like I can see a sweet dog. I love sweet dogs. I'm gonna continue the Bed Bath & Beyond bankruptcy video.
Consumers found it difficult to find a reason to shop at Bed Bath & Beyond when everything sold there could just be found online, in some cases direct from the product's brand. For some, those stores became a showroom to test out what those products felt like in person and then just order them online. It also didn't help that Bed Bath & Beyond's website was a clunky mess that wasn't very pleasant to use, especially compared to other competitors in the space. So their market share in the online sphere was minimal at best. To make matters even worse, the pandemic hit. Stores were shuttered across the states in accordance to local health procedures. A massive shift was made to online commerce, and the company's footprint there was just not up to standard. Ultimately, over 200 stores were permanently closed during this time, and when things did start to reopen, the financial health of the company was not looking good. Between 2020 and 2021, the company posted net losses of over $760 million. The retailer was running out of liquidity, and their stock price was reflecting this bleak circumstance. This also meant they had issues with paying their suppliers, which resulted in unstocked shelves. Their strategy of introducing private label brands didn't exactly go over that smoothly. And instead of enticing new shoppers to try them out, it deterred regulars by replacing brand name products. By June 2022, their CEO resigned and was replaced by Sue Gove, and her job was to keep the ship afloat. By August, another 150 stores were closed permanently, along with a reduction in their workforce by 20%. The company ultimately decided not to sell Bye Bye Baby for cash, and instead took out a loan worth about $500 million, which was mostly used to pay off debts. With pressure mounting, the company's CFO had taken his own life after being one of the targets of a class action lawsuit alleging that executives were artificially inflating the company's stock in a sort of pump and dump scheme. The company was on life support, and they didn't hide it. On January 23rd, 2023, Bed Bath & Beyond came right out and said that there is significant doubt that the company would be able to continue through the year and that bankruptcy might be inevitable. However, their CEO did state that they have a clear vision for the future of the brand and that they just need time to execute. But the reality of this would be put into serious question as banks began halting lines of credit, fearing insolvency.
I just spoke with Lord Vader.
Hey, I watched this. This is good.
Spoke to yourself.
That's a really that's a really good show. I like that.
The brand was running
also proves that Fifth Brother of the Inquisitor is
more and more of an inevitability. On March 30th, Bed Bath & Beyond announced a $300 million stock offer. If all of this stock was sold, this would generate around $1 billion for the company. But they also stated that if it didn't sell off, they would likely be forced to declare bankruptcy. Sure enough, their stock offering didn't pan out very well, and on April 23rd, 2023, Bed Bath & Beyond had declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The retailer had over $5.2 billion in debt. For years prior to the bankruptcy, the company had been looking for a buyer to take over operations. Their position remained unchanged on that, but stated that if they couldn't find a buyer in time, they would just liquidate everything. So without delay and seemingly no buyer interested, the brand began winding down operations just as their stock plummeted and was ultimately delisted. Stores across the country, all 360 of them, began liquidating their stock. The famous 20% off coupons finally met their end and were no longer accepted the day the liquidation began. Bye Bye Baby, their subsidiary retailer, also began liquidations, closing all of their 120 locations. Stores then began closing all around the country, signifying the end of Bed Bath & Beyond's physical existence in the retail landscape. Their stock went from a high of $80 in 2014 to just 43 cents a few days prior to their bankruptcy.
Imagine if they like exploded back and just buy $1 billion or just buy $1,000 of stock.
While the original co-founders
But yeah, that's just a lost cause right there. F to the stockholders.
Company for decades. The management within in the later years seemed to have gotten too comfortable with all of that success. They became the product of the very thing they created the company to go against. Bed Bath & Beyond was a trendsetter in the industry. It was the new era of retail from the post-war Disney.
It does. I do miss Bed Bath & Beyond. It's nostalgic to me. I used to go there a lot as a kid.
With the brand success and the strategy that set them apart.
Although I said earlier, I don't really enjoy going to it. I actually kind of enjoy going to it.
But there were other issues as well. Starting in 2004 and going all the way to 2022, the company spent $11.8 billion in stock buybacks, which I think some would call a greedy move that put the company in debt. In hindsight, it was obviously a terrible decision to do so, especially when the company was cash-strapped in the later years. They literally took out debt to buy back stock that would later become worthless. Critics also claimed that the company overpaid executive leadership, all while they were reporting losses. It's no wonder why company morale was down. The retailer also just offered little reason for the modern shopper to walk in. They had no exclusive brands, and the shopping experience was chaotic and overwhelming for some, and their online presence was just not up to standard. Prices in their stores were also just expensive. Actually, they're kind of ridiculous. This ugly resin and probably faux marble trash can is $72.
Oh my god.
Pump is an egregious $85. You can get a real marble pump for literally half the cost at an upscale home goods retailer like CB2. I mean, these product prices were insane. Shoppers were just falling out of favor with them. And I know that because I was one of them. When I first got my own apartment, I frequented their stores quite often, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But in my own experience, I found their stores to be a complete mess of products, most of which didn't seem to match the quality of the price point. It felt more like a junky store filled with a bunch of as-seen-on-TV crap, most of which you could just find on Amazon, rather than spending the gas money to drive all the way out there to one. It felt tired and not something well thought out or designed with convenience in mind, especially when places like Target or Walmart exist, where you can get pretty much the same core items there, plus a whole bunch of others without having to make a whole separate trip. This was a fundamental shift in how customers viewed the company, and it was a bad spot they found themselves in. A lot of expenses to go along with it. The writing was on the wall, and you can tell if you visited their stores in the months or even years up to the bankruptcy. Some of the in-store footage in this video was filmed by my friend Retail Archaeology. He documented a few of the stores through the years, and the decline was palpable. The bankruptcy of Bed Bath & Beyond is interesting though, as their rise to popularity was relatively recent. Most mega brands in the US, like Sears and JCPenney, saw their rise in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. But Bed Bath was different. They saw most of their success in 2013, generating the most sales and the largest reach in 2017. Their growth was monstrous, and for millions of people,
only 10 years
it was
ago.
the go-to place for your household goods. But just as quickly as their rise, they found themselves with an aging strategy that didn't work in the way they had it structured. Their corporate structure and unwillingness to adapt and recognize new trends ultimately killed them off. It's unclear as to what will happen to the company from this point on. It will likely exist in some e-commerce fashion, probably snatched up by Tai Lopez, since that's for some reason the new trend. Or maybe it isn't. Regardless, this is likely the end of the line for the retailer. One that was started half a century ago, thrived for decades, but is likely now beyond recovery. Look, Bed Bath & Beyond made it out of the 2008 recession rather unscathed. Actually, they kind of lucked out with the death of their largest competitor. Unfortunately, Linens and Things had to join the 2008 recession support group, right alongside the Palms Dubai and Fountainblue. Well, we got a shirt about it, and it's not just that. Maybe you're wondering what happens when the pyramids of Giza meets the Memphis Pyramid for the first time. Obviously, they're going to play tourists to the mighty American Pyramid.
That's funny.
Yes, this is our new apparel line. There's an additional 3 designs, from an abandoned ship convention where Mick Barge is probably not welcome, to an abandoned mall, sorry to lose its only friend, the Anchor Store. These are joined by 3 variations of the beautiful vintage BSF logo, including a hat, which I've been wearing pretty much every day since I've gotten it. Obviously, with this, I've taken a bit of a different route with this apparel line. A more cute and fashionable approach, but also connected to Brightsome Films. I've been working on this for a while now with some very talented art.
I need to get into this time.
A new
Oh my god, no, don't take, no, not out of context. Please don't take that out of context. Although, no, God. I need to get into this guy's content. That's what I was about to say. That's what she said, Mom. He said. Sorry. Abandoned.
Hot water's better tasting, it's better for the planet. So
Abandoned. I want to watch Abandoned. Abandoned. Let's see. Alcatraz. I can definitely. I went here. I went to Alcatraz. I went to the Alcatraz. I mean, it's where I got this harmonica. Sorry, guys. I know you might have missed the harmonica. I got this harmonica off of the Alcatraz. Not a website. No, I bought it with cash off of Alcatraz.
Excuse my no videos just because this week has been not only strange but very not tough, but very stressful and strange. It's just a lot of strangeness now. It's things change and all change. Who am I? My name's Jake. I already said this. There's gonna be a lot of black screen again. Welcome to the 5th episode of Abandoned. You guys, oh my god, this is the most requested thing ever. Today we are doing Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary.
Hey,
Strangeness now. It's things change.
little note. What? Not really. It'd be too complex, but a little bit of a note to you. There is a big storm just south of you. However, that's the bad news. The good news is it's moving, like, in a direction where it's not going to hit you. It's not, like, a very severe storm. It's just a little, like, little bit. It's a little strong. Not severe, though. Actually, what am I saying? There actually is severe thunderstorm warnings on it and flood warnings, but there's no tornado. It's going southeast. No, it's going southeast. And it should not travel towards you. It's going to go, like, perpendicular to you. But just be careful if it changes directions. Other than that, you are in a slight severe weather risk zone. Or 2 out of 5 risk. Oh, I don't respond to texts. Was your messages green? I'm watching a video on Alcatraz Abandoned.
Who am I? My name's
So I think everybody knows about, but what is Alcatraz exactly? Alcatraz is an old prison system and it's located in the legendary town of San Francisco. Actually, I shouldn't even call that a town. San Francisco is a city. It's big. And every island prison you see in film probably was inspired off Alcatraz. This one dude got sent to prison for stealing. You ready for this? You want to guess what he stole? $20 in groceries. And he got sentenced to 40 years in prison. There are actual really bad films that have gotten sentenced to less time. Wow. 10 out of 10 justice system. Oh, by the way, it is. It is brutal. Just for stealing $20, probably $100 in the day's currency. You could probably spend a few days behind jail. Anyway, this prison was brutal. I actually saw gunshot areas where the police have had to respond to riots, and they have these old steel bars, and these are some heavy doors too. They're at least 100 pounds per door, and the bars were as thick as rebar, probably at least 1 to 3 centimeters thick in some areas. The doors, just normal doors, heavily armored doors, probably hundreds of pounds per door. These were armored doors. You could probably fire so many small arm bullets into it, and it would do nothing. Oh, it would probably damage it, but it'd probably take a few shots to get through. Anyway. And living conditions were awful. If you were the worst of the worst prisoner, they would lock you in this door. They'd lock you in this room, and they'd cut out your light, so you'd sit in darkness. And this room, basically, if you took in Minecraft a 2x3 block room, that's how small it was, if not smaller. It's a very small, cramped room, and what's it called? Yeah, that was the heavy ward too, and they had rooms. They had what's it called? They had holes in the door, little windows where you could shoot at the prisoners in case they tried to do a riot. And dude, it smells awful there because of all the bird crap. However, interestingly, Alcatraz has a brand new fate. In fact, today Alcatraz is beautiful. It's actually home to so much wildlife, and it has a bunch of flowers and birds. A lot of birds. In my opinion, don't mess with the seagulls because a lot of them that I found had babies, and they wanted to protect the babies from predators like people. Yeah. And you know what's weird about seagull babies? Seagulls are white with yellow beaks. The babies are brown with black spots and black beaks. They're totally different from their adult variant of seagull. So yeah, don't bother seagulls. If the seagull hisses at you, just step away calmly. Don't mess with them. They don't like it when people mess with them. Trust me, I found that out the hard way. I didn't get attacked by a seagull, but I had some moms get mad at me because I was going too close to their nest. And they have so much beautiful flowers there. And you can see the Golden Gate Bridge in some parts of the island. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Yeah, the flowers there are some of the most prettiest flowers I have ever seen in my life. And if anybody's gonna ask questions, were there escapees? Yes, but they died. I think 39 escape attempts. 17 were shot, Like of the all the 39, 2 people got off the island and were never identified again. Actually, no, like 7 people got off the island. 2 people were unidentified and they were lost to history, while 5 bodies washed up on the shore. I saw I've seen it in June in San Francisco in June. The water it's cold and the water looks even colder. The water also has currents. So if you try to swim off, you better not drown. Even good swimmers could be caught off guard by the currents. It takes like 10 minutes to get there by a boat. By a boat. Imagine swimming. And the water did not look pleasant. It looked awful and cold and violent. Also, there's sharks. There's some sharks that... And remember, getting off the island is one thing. Getting to mainland is another. Because once you were to make it there, you'd be identified and searched and detained by the cops. This place was very hard to get off of. Like security was good. This is one of the most infamous prisons in history. Some of the most dangerous U.S. criminals have been here. No, that was what's it called? Alcatraz closed in the 60s, so that's like Al Capone or Machine Gun Kelly. Those criminals came here. And another thing I saw in the Alcatraz was a vintage grade Chicago typewriter or a Tommy gun. Like an actual Tommy gun. If you don't know, back then, Tommy guns were very infamous. They were the gangster's weapon. They were automatic weapons that fired 45 much of damage to a person, especially if it was hollow point. As they say with hollow point, 45, big, fat, and slow. You may want to watch a video about that.
It's gonna be a lot of black screen again. Welcome to the 5th episode of Abandoned.
I went through a lot of it.
God, this is the most
a lot of Alcatraz. I've been through most of it. I've been through where they would eat.
Federal Penitentiary.
And that's cool. Now, Alcatraz closed, and they wanted it to be. The feds wanted to destroy it. However, the people of San Francisco petitioned that Alcatraz should be turned into a wildlife reserve, and it's way too much of a historical place to be destroyed. So therefore, Alcatraz was one of the few prisons to be placed in the United States Registry of National Parks. So now Alcatraz is a national park now, which is pretty cool. And it's a pretty place. I do recommend people go find it and go tour it. It does smell on your first 10 minutes, but you'll get used to it when you go there. You can either walk around there and look at the stuff yourself, or you can listen to an audio tour. And by the way, if you're a prisoner today, the prison conditions in this prison were awful. Like, you were literally crammed in a cell with tons of stinky other people. And they're, oh god, I can't even explain how bad it probably was to stay in there. But, like, and by the way, if you wanted to take a crap, or you wanted to go to the bathroom, there was no privacy. So somebody across from you could literally watch you go to the restroom, and you couldn't do anything about it. You either had to hold it, or you had to go. So that's also another thing why Alcatraz was horrible to be prisoned at. No successful escape attempts from this prison.
Keep your screams down to a minimum, because I know everybody wanted this video. Like, so many people. That Nick Studios...
My favorite prison.
Here's all the people that wanted it, because it's a freaking hell of a lot of people. So, today we're going to be exploring the details of Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary,
or USB,
mostly known as Alcatraz. Alcatraz was a high security maximum prison on Alcatraz Island, which is about 2 kilometers off the coast of San Francisco, California, which opened on
Yeah, if you want to know where it is, it's like directly east of the Golden Gate Bridge. Again, as I said, Alcatraz, I do recommend you visit it on a good, sunny San Francisco day. It is one of the best vantage points to see the Golden Gate Bridge. And you can also, it's also good. I got some pretty good shots. I don't know if I have them on my iPad, but these are some pretty good shots. What? Construction material. I make construction materials.
The main prison building was actually built in 1910 and 19.
Alcatraz was actually a fort before it was turned to a prison.
States Army prison for World War I. When the disciplinary barracks were acquired on October 1933 by the United States Department of Justice, the island then became a prison for the Federal Bureau of Prisons in August 1934. The buildings were upgraded to meet the requirements of a high security prison due to its such high security location, since it's 2 kilometers off the San Francisco Bay. It also surrounds with cold water and strong currents.
Oh yeah, it sucks to.
Was believed to be escape proof. Now, seeing it was such a high security,
they all died.
Of the time were actually in Alcatraz, because Alcatraz was designed.
Two people, they got off, but they've never been seen again. They could have assimilated into society, but even though two people, like I doubt they survived, because I saw the water there, and plus, think about it, like if you go back to San Francisco as a felon, you're going to be identified very quickly and turned into the police. So, by the way, San Francisco is a really big place. And getting out of San Francisco from the nearest point, which is like Pier 39, is pretty difficult to do, and you're walking. The best way is to make your way over to 101 across the Golden Gate, and then you're out of San Francisco. But then there's a bunch of other city up there too. Oh, and when you go north of a lot north of San Francisco, and then to California, there is nothing. Like, you better hope your car doesn't break down, because if you do, you will have to walk miles to the nearest place to go get help. It's creepy. Like, we were going down the Redwoods National Forest, and when I'm saying these forests were secluded, like, there was no town within, like, a 15 to 30 minute distance. Like, if you got stranded, you better hope you have a flare gun and a bit of cellular reception. If you love cellular reception, this place is not the good place for you, because guess what? There is nothing. There's no cell. Like, no cellular data. Yep, and then what's it called? Here's a picture of the Alcatraz, and it has a baseball diamond. It's really good condition in this photo, but it's been completely destroyed. So the prisoners could play. They could play what's it called? Baseball, and the courtyard has these giant walls. I mean, these walls are like 15 foot high. You cannot climb them. And on top of that, there's fencing with barbed wire. Like, these walls... As I watch my dad go behind me with a truck. Yeah, let's keep going.
That continuously cause trouble in their prisons were going to be sent to Alcatraz. Some of those people that were in Alcatraz were Al Capone, George the Machine Gun Kelly, Arthur R. Doc Barker, Alvin Creepy Caparis, who actually spent most of his time than any other prisoner in Alcatraz. Alcatraz gained its notability because of people people's conceptions that it was the toughest prison in America.
I would say so too.
Prisoners would often report acts of brutality and inhumane conditions. However, somewhat contradicting other prisoners that said Alcatraz's living conditions were much better than other prisons in the country, especially the food. On June 11th, 1960,
the food was pretty good sounding. Like there was coffee. It was good compared to even today's. Like they had some pretty good food in Alcatraz. Like they had coffee and they had like other stuff. Like you wouldn't see this serviced here. You would never see it serviced in any. Well, today, if you are lucky and you're good, you can get out on good behavior, but you can have your sentence reduced. It depends on your crime that you commit. Like if you're like maybe a burglar and you could probably get out on good. It really depends on who get arrest you and stuff. But I can't like say it completely. You'd have to like really search into it. I love my baby girl.
John Anglin and Clarence Anglin, I think I'm saying that right. Anglin, Anglin, if you pronounce that, carried out one of the most intricate escapes ever. Apparently behind the prisoner's cell.
Oh, yup. Okay, so here's how it worked, Wyatt. There are 3 rows of cells and 3 blocks, right? Now, each block had 2 rows, so 6 rows of prison cells. Now, behind these cells were a long corridor, and I saw this corridor. And this corridor has pipes and plumbing for all the pipes to go through. So some prisoners had a devious little plan to chisel behind the wall out of the corridor, and then they would escape through there in complex means. And you know what they did? This is insane. They took a replica human head, I think like made out of plaster, and they put it in their bed to make it look like they were there. But they were actually escaping. And this action can be done in the Prison Escape of Pop Tropica, which I love that DLC, by the way. And I didn't even know that's what I was referencing when I played the game. So hats off to Pop Tropica for referencing an infamous prison escape. Let's see what this guy says.
There was an unguarded 3-foot corridor.
Yup.
The prisoners were able to break away pieces of the moisture-damaged concrete from around the air vents using drills from things that they found around the prison. The escapees also made an inflatable raft from over 50 raincoats that they stole. They escaped through a vent in the roof and departed from Alcatraz Island. Nearby on Angel Island, the FBI found articles from the prisoners that were parts of rafts. The official FBI case said that since the water temperatures were about 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit,
by the way, remember, I have a wetsuit, and my wetsuit is designed to withstand 60 degrees at a minimum. This is 5 degrees below that. This is cold enough to induce hyperthermia.
Or 10 to 12 degrees Celsius, I think. It was about 2
That's
kilometers
cold.
or 1.25 miles. That there would barely be a chance of surviving, leaving the prisoners presumably dead. Now, okay, that was more of the exciting times of the prison. Let's move on to the final years, or the abandoned years. During the 1950s, Alcatraz became a very unpopular prison because it was far more expensive than any other prison institution in the United States. For an average prison jail in any other prison, it costed around $3 per prisoner a day, where in Alcatraz was around $10 a day per prisoner. Then Director James V. Bennett, the director of Federal Bureau of Prisons, wanted to make more centralized institutions to replace Alcatraz. Other problems with Alcatraz included that the prison had seriously been damaged structurally from the exposure to the salt air and wind. It would have needed around $5 million to fix it. And actually, they started repairing the prison in 1958. But by 1961, engineers evaluated Alcatraz as a lost cause. Now, if you flash forward to today, Alcatraz is a museum and one of San Francisco's major tourist attractions, attracting more than 1.5 million visitors annually. Visitors get to have a tour of the cell house, cells, and pretty much mostly all the island, and are also given a slideshow to view, because why not? People who also visit Alcatraz say the atmosphere of the island is still very eerie and chilling. So technically, right now, Alcatraz is abandoned. That goes into this video, kind of.
Yeah, there's a part of the island like
So,
the
even though it
like
is a tourist
the power
attraction,
plant,
it
and
is
there's a
abandoned.
like only like
Like,
half the
not
island
really
is
maintenance on it. So,
kept from public
it is pretty
view.
cool that it does exist as a tourist attraction. You're actually allowed to visit it, and it's also pretty good that they haven't destroyed it or.
There's the boat
And it's
that
pretty,
a boat that's
pretty
powered by like
cool.
solar and wind
Like
power.
the Golden Gate Bridge itself. As of right now, there's a pretty good chance that you know what Alcatraz is. I've only met like one person that doesn't know what Alcatraz is because it's pretty famous. You're gonna find it a lot in not social media, but media in itself. Like, for instance, there's that. I think it was called Alcatraz. It was with Sam Neill, the guy from Jurassic Park, and the fat guy from Lost. Remember that show? Yeah, that was a good show, kind of. I only watched like 5 episodes, and then it kind of got weird because there was portals and doors and things. There was also the DLC for zombies on Black Ops, and
Yeah,
that
Zombies
was
Call.
That was fun. But yeah, that's actually about it. Definitely go check out Alcatraz yourself. There's tons and tons and tons of videos on it on the internet. Go look at tours. It's really fantastic.
Yeah,
go look at pictures on it.
I do recommend you 100%. It's gonna smell because of all the bird crap there. But Alcatraz is such a cool place to visit. I 100% recommend visiting it. It's gonna be you. In my opinion, the best time to go visit is early in the morning. You gotta wake up and you gotta get there because the lines, you have to wait like 15 minutes per rotation. And you want to hear the great thing about Alcatraz? You can spend an hour on it, or you can spend like an entire day on Alcatraz Island. Yeah, you can spend an entire day on the island. They just let you. The boats that go there, they basically drop people off, and like when they drop you off, you can just stay there as long as you want, but you're gonna have to wait till the next boat comes and picks you back up. Which I'd say like 15 to 25 minutes between each boat ride. That's how long you're going to have to wait. It is a wait, but it's good.
As always, my name is Jake. I thank you so much for watching Abandoned Episode 5.
Six Flags, New Orleans. I know what happened here. You're probably wondering, what? A Six Flags park abandoned? How could that happen? Well, Six Flags, New Orleans was started. However, here's a bad thing. 2005, and there's a few people that probably know. Hurricane Katrina. A hurricane that left thousands, or should I say, no, I think hundreds and hundreds of bodies just floating in the streets. A hurricane that completely flipped the engineering view of New Orleans' levee system upside down. One that exposed its critical flaws. A hurricane that would go down in infamy as one of the worst hurricanes in U.S. history. Well, the thing is, have you ever heard your parents worry about salt when they drive in winter months? Have you? Have you ever heard your parents kind of like worry a little bit about salt when it comes to winter months, when it comes to their cars? Well, in my opinion, when you get a car, when you're in a car and you drive through winter months, and when spring comes, make sure you wash your car down and make sure you drive through puddles to wash salt off. Because what the problem is about salt corrodes materials. Salt will rust metal. And you probably already know where it's going. What happened is that because the levee system of New Orleans failed, it let in tons of salt water. 7 feet of salt water quickly flooded New Orleans Six Flags, and this lasted a month. After the water was cleared, the Six Flags official company decided that it was way too dangerous to keep the park open, and it's now been closed. And in my opinion, do not go there and explore. Cops and police and law enforcement still monitor the area to make sure nobody goes in or out of this, or not to say out, but that doesn't go in. So do not do not go into the park without authorized permission, because if you do, unlike Chernobyl or unlike some other areas that have been disastered, you will be promptly arrested. So that's.
Why is anything for Castlemouth and PetSmart? That means more deals.
Yeah, you don't want to go in there. They do patrol the area. It's now New Orleans Six Flags just sits there.
What is up, guys? My name is Jake. For the second time,
rotting away.
Because I cocked up the other time. Yay. This is Abandoned episode 4. This is a bigger episode. I hope you like this. I'm leaving tomorrow, actually. I'm leaving tomorrow. I gotta edit this. It's a whole thing, alright? So, apparently you guys don't like the way I talk in these videos, so I'm gonna try not to mess up or, go off topic or, anything, which is hard for me. I'm sorry. Anyway, we're gonna be talking about Six Flags New Orleans. This was suggested by these people.
Like how as I'm building a bathroom, I have to go to the bathroom.
The screen somewhere. It would take me forever to pronounce all of them, so I'm sorry, but all of you people who requested, here you are. This was also the most requested one, so I thought I should do it. Now this is quite a big one with quite a bit of history, so bear with me, and yeah, let's begin. So, Six Flags New Orleans started out actually by a different company. The park was built in 2000 and was under the name Jazzland. Which had no affiliation to Six Flags at all, really. It was actually operated by Alpha Smart Parks. Alpha is spelled in the weirdest way ever, which has since changed its name. But in 2001, the lease for the park was put up for sale, which, a year later. In March of 2002, Six Flags bought the park, and the name stayed the same for a year. So in 2003, they finally changed the name to Six Flags New Orleans. And did some minor upgrades to the park, which included new rides and new themed areas and all that. This was the same time Six Flags began to rebrand the parks and the company actually, with the new slogan "It's playtime," and added the dancing old man in those commercials. In summer of 2005, Six Flags announced that the park would undergo a water park expansion. And it was in the very early stages.
Yeah, I remember. It was sandwiched really close to an interstate, and it was in this basin that allowed it to flood.
The normal weekend operations ended early due to the schools starting their year early. The park was scheduled to open on August 27th and August 28th, 2005, as per usual.
However, the weekend was canceled due to the storm preparation and evacuations, hence why it says closed for the storm on the sign. But on August 26, 2005, New Orleans was directly hit by Hurricane Katrina, which later ended up being the largest and third strongest hurricane ever recorded, which killed over 1,836 people, with 700 people still missing. One of the worst parts about it was the massive storm surge the hurricane put in.
It obliterated New Orleans.
Section of eastern New Orleans, which created a basin for much of the immediate surge. They actually
I had this right on the money.
Sides, which didn't help at all. The park remained with floodwaters 7 feet high.
Oh my god, I had it right on the money. I didn't even watch this video before.
Due to the extensive wind and water damage, the park was in no shape to reopen. The damage reports from Six Flags inspectors. I keep saying inspectors. Damage reports from Six Flags inspectors stated the park's buildings were 80% demolished, with most of the rides were damaged beyond repair, with most of the ground level rides with their electrical and steel structures severely damaged by long-term salt water. Sometime during the inspections, Six Flags announced that the park will be closed through 2007. However, on July 1st, 2006, Six Flags announced that after extensive damage assessments, they declared the park was a total loss and that there was no desire or intent to undertake the cost to rebuild the park. Soon after, Six Flags was in negotiation with the city to have an early exit out of their 75-year lease. However, the mayor of New Orleans said he planned to hold Six Flags to the lease agreement and force them to rebuild. If held to the terms of the lease agreement, Six Flags would legally be obligated to rebuild the park on the same site, but only to the extent of the insurance money Six Flags received. Six Flags determined the value of the assets destroyed by the storm at $32.5 million. As of September 2006, Six Flags has collected $11.5 million of the insurance proceeds, bringing the insurance receivable balance to $24.4 million. In January 2007, Six Flags then sued its insurers for the rest of the remaining $175 million in coverage.
That does sound like fraud.
Now, the reason Six Flags wanted badly out of this lease is mostly because Six Flags New Orleans was actually the least profitable out of all the parks under their ownership. Hence why, they have low interest of rebuilding. Actually, no interest of rebuilding, which is why they wanted him. There's been many proposals to redevelop the area. One including another theme park company promising to double the size of the park, finish the planned water park, and add over 60 new rides. The idea fell short in 2011 due to the cost. Another is Jazzland Outlet Mall, which is from the city actually, which came really close to happening, which was only recently called off in 2014. Also, many TV shows and movies were filmed here. Quite famous ones too. Most parts of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, by the way, that's a great movie, was filmed there. Percy Jackson, The Sea of Monsters, horrible movie, don't watch that. Like where they go to the island part, I don't know, it's really stupid, but lots of scenes in that movie were filmed there. And the park is actually going to be used for some portions of the movie Jurassic World, which is the new Jurassic Park movie. So as of 2014, the park is owned by the city of New Orleans and currently still remains abandoned. So next year, it should be 10 years of just being abandoned. I never got to go there. I've never been that far into the United States, but I'm sure it's something that's cool. That's the first thing I saw from Out of the Blue, and Out of the Blue was great. And yeah, that's about it actually. So thanks for watching, and we will see you later.
Abandoned, probably the best one. Abandoned. Chernobyl. Again, if you guys don't know anything about Chernobyl, research it. It's the best man-made disaster to research, in my opinion. Of course, if you guys don't know what in the absolute world Chernobyl is an old Soviet RBMK-1000 reactor that exploded in April of 1986. Today, people claim that because of Chernobyl, this is why nuclear technology is dangerous. However, the reason that Chernobyl exploded in the first place is because it was made of a highly, highly flawed RBMK reactor design. A design that has failed multiple times in the past because of its flaws. In fact, Leningrad had a RBMK meltdown, but they recontained it. However, Chernobyl was not as lucky. Today, the city of Pripyat, which is the surrounding city where Chernobyl was, lies abandoned and now has radioactive contamination all over it. I swear to God, there's a lot. There's a lot of prairie, whatever that is, in California.
What's up, guys? My name is Jake. Welcome to Abandon, episode 10. This is the 10th Abandon episode that we made. So, right before we start the video, I just want to announce to you all, we started a brand new series not too long ago. It is called Abandon Adventures, and it is where we actually go to the place and we explore it. It's really
I
cool.
want to go to Chernobyl one day, and no, I'm not going.
Just go watch that, 'cause it's really cool.
The only problem with Chernobyl tourism currently is it is located in none other than Ukraine, which is currently being invaded by Russia, which apparently the Ukrainians are doing a very good job of counterattack. They are whooping the Russian forces, which, hats off to Ukraine. Hats off. They are... Russia just should just quit at this point. There's no point. What a waste of military assets. Russia's military is pathetic. They literally have cool looking suits, because back then the Soviet troops used to have these like really good suits for like survival. Now they're just replaced by fancy looking suits that don't provide any survivability. So I actually kind of feel bad for some of the Russian soldiers, because apparently some of them just freeze out in the battlefield before they even get any action. And some of the Russian soldiers have protested against the war. I would too. What a waste of human life.
Hotel and water park, and we've already filmed like 2 more episodes, so go watch that. It's really great. Click on the screen right here and it will take you there, and it will be fun. Also, shout out to these people on Twitter and Instagram. So thank you guys for liking our pages. Anyway, let's get into the video. You guys have been voting for this for quite a while, and today finally we will be doing Chernobyl and the nearby city of
Pripyat.
So yeah. Oh, also, don't bitch at me on how I say things in this
Dude, I think more people, support releasing murderers from prison than people that use YouTube music. Like, bruh. Nobody likes YouTube music.
Because, I'm American. Right, so, the Chernobyl nuclear power facility is located near the city of Pripyat in the country of Ukraine.
Oh my god, people.
The construction of the plant and the nearby town of Pripyat, to house all the workers and families, began in 1970.
Oh yeah, and when I'm saying that Chernobyl and the nearby city, like, these cities, or the city was kept off the map. This was a top secret city. The people in the city were not to contact anybody in the outside world, and the outside world would never contact them. This is supposed to be like a nuclear city, where some of the best Soviet scientists lived. However, sadly, that did not come to fruition. Imagine right now the government goes up to your door. It says you have 5 minutes to leave, pack everything, you're gone. You can't take your pets, you can't take your large possessions. You just gotta pack everything you can carry into a suitcase, and you'd be promised to temporarily come back to your house, but you would never. They would just take you away. For your safety.
The first nuclear reactor was completed in 1977, followed by the second in 1978,
Chernobyl 1, Chernobyl 2,
in 1981, and finally the fourth in 1983. At the time of the accident, there were 2 other reactors under construction, sort of.
Reactor 5 and Reactor 6 that were canceled.
Completed, had an opening date around 1986. The 6th reactor was planned to be a new block of the building, and that was set to be open in 1994. First off...
Now, actually, there's a lot of people that say Chernobyl... by the way, I know I'm doing these signs different from, like, the first floor. The first, second, and third floor signs are different, but who cares? But anyway, Chernobyl had to operate even after the destruction of its reactor, because if you don't know how power plants work, People think power plants just go to one location only, but it's actually, this is incorrect, because I've discovered, like, when I mapped power grids in the United States, I've discovered that the power plants actually connect to each other, and they don't go in one particular area. So a power plant not only generates power, but it serves as like a giant substation, and it redirects. It's almost like a traffic man in the power grid. It channels electricity down certain lanes. So that's why Chernobyl was remaining active until it was closed. And in 2004, I think, they finally put the last reactor out of its misery and shut it down permanently. In my opinion, if you have to ask me what's the hardest place to get into, I like that's accessible to people that could be accessed. It's Reactor 4 because it's completely sealed off, and you'd have a higher chance of getting shot before getting into it, because guess what? It's sealed permanently, where tons of radioactive dust are contained.
The now abandoned town of Pripyat. Pripyat was founded on February 4th, 1970, and it was the 9th city to have a nuclear power plant in the Soviet Union. Its main function was to house workers and scientists of the power plant up until around 1979, when it was officially proclaimed a city. Access to the city was not restricted, which meant literally anyone could go there. The reason why it wasn't restricted was because before the Chernobyl disaster, nuclear power was actually seen as a really safe power method. Before the disaster, the city of Pripyat had around 49,000 occupants, which is pretty large. Oh, and I should probably mention this too. On September 9th, 1982, an actual partial meltdown occurred in reactor number 1. The reactor was put back into service within months, and no public word came out about the meltdown until 7 years later. So, what happened? Well, on April 24th, 1986,
yeah, I forgot to say this.
1 a.m.
I forgot about that.
System tests were
They actually had a meltdown in this reactor before the explosion, and they kept going. They didn't say, "Oh, we need to shut this." No, they just they kept going. They say, "F this."
This caused an unexpected power surge. When the plant attempted an emergency shutdown, the reactor exerted a huge spike in the power output. This led to a reactor vessel rupture, which is not good. After a series of steam explosions, the reactor exposed the graphite moderator of the reactor to air, causing an ignition. Basically, reactor number 4 just blew up.
Oh my god, reactor 4, when it blew up,
the resulting
there was a blue light.
Radiation into the air, which led to the death of power output. Basically, reactor number 4 just blew up. This explosion killed 2 workers in the plant. The resulting explosions caused a massive leak of radiation into the air, which led to the deaths of around 28 others, mainly first responders. Most of the radiation contaminated blowers. I'm just gonna let the computer fill in.
God, that makes me so sick to see, man. Because in the show Chernobyl, these guys approach a piece of graphite, and it looks very much harmless, but this thing is like extremely radioactive. It's actually even termed to say that reactors, when they explode, they are very radioactive. I mean, these things are hot. Like the guy touched a piece of graphite, and his hand was all red and bloody afterwards in the show. Yeah. And there was these like black blocks. Another time they actually sent robots, and they asked Germany to send down robots. However, the robot died because, like, I like how in the show the robot dies and he gets mad because if they told Germany that they're dealing with highly radioactive waste, then Germany would try to send investigations to Russia, or no, Ukraine. No, that Ukraine wasn't even a thing back then. I meant to say Soviet Union, and they'd get suspicious, and the world would know. They tried to hide it from the press, but it got leaked, and they got exposed for it. Radiation detectors all the way over into the United States got triggered. Yeah, like radioactive, like Geiger counters all over the European Union start to get triggered, and that's when people started to investigate Russia. There's even a point where these guys had to go onto the roof for only 90 seconds, throw garbage off into the reactor before they couldn't work ever again. Which I have to say, massive shout out to the 250, I think, 1,000 plus people who just sacrifice themselves to contain the incident. Like they probably can't have kids. They have horrible health effects, especially the firemen who tried to put out the fire, who were getting dosed with like the largest dose of radiation there. And it sucks because when you suffer from radioactive contamination, you die slowly, and it's like you'd rather burn to death than die of radiation poisoning. It's one of the most awful, cruelest ways to go out. Like your skin, it looks normal, but it melts off. You vomit, constant, like, diarrhea. God, it's awful. I don't even know if I'm gonna go into details. You have to search up yourself, but it's awful to suffer from.
So stupid. But this would later have
Probably should back up your world now.
Effects in the years to come. Following the announcement of the disaster, the people of Pripyat were told to leave as the Ukrainian government brought in buses to move everyone. This was done in 2 days. 49,000 people, guys, in 2 days. That is insane. This was made permanent as officials honestly had no idea how bad the contamination was. People working at the plant also really didn't know how serious all of this was. And little did they know that this event would change the world forever. So it's been a while since 1986. What's happened and what will happen? Well, since then, immediate areas of the plant, including the town of Pripyat...
Okay, sadly a lot of the dogs that got loose... I mean, there's a scene, I will say one spoiler ahead. There is a scene in Chernobyl where they start shooting, like, dogs because if the dogs escaped, they would start contaminating stuff. So I would advise skipping that. I personally did. But luckily, some of the dogs did escape. And, oh my god, to search up Chernobyl dogs, they are so beautiful. They're some of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen because they got out and they're allowed to breed. And a lot of the Chernobyl dogs, they're not really that contaminated, and you can adopt them. That's right, you can adopt Chernobyl dogs. It's adorable. And a lot of them, they'll go up to you and just cuddle with you. You can pet them. They're really friendly.
Some areas in the nearby country of
Belarus
have been deemed unsafe and off limits to everyone. About 30 to 40 deaths have been completely caused by the plant, and doctors claim that there will be a lot more in the future. This makes sense. I won't go into the different kind of birth defects that all of this radiation caused, but I will say when the plant initially blew up, the residents of the town were actually like tasting
metal,
like a metal taste, and they were having uncontrollable coughs and vomiting and all. It was really bad, and people were already exposed to all this radiation, all this harmful toxic gases, and this stuff that they breathe in will have a lot of lasting effects on their bodies. As for the plant itself, reactor number 4 was sealed off and surrounded by 200 cubic meters of concrete, literally a few metric shit tons. The Ukrainian government also let the remaining reactors run, as the country was in a bit of a power deficit. Then, in 1991, a fire broke out in reactor number 1, and basically, after that, all of them were taken offline in the later years. An initial structure was built around the plant to act as a shield to stop the radiation leakage. This was mostly referred to as the sarcophagus. This was built fairly quickly as it was extremely needed at the time, and as you can imagine, it was pretty shitty. A new, better structure was announced in 2003 and started construction in 2000.
But another thing about Chernobyl did make history in their time, as there was a giant, like a new containment structure raised above it, and this thing will last 100 years. It'll last till like 2117. And it, at the time when it was moved, it was named as the largest moving structure on land. It's a big building.
You would think it would be done by now, but no. It's been delayed so many times. It's now expected to be completed in 2017. By the way, the original structure built...
This is 2015. This is 2 years before the safe confinement was even raised above into the position. Now, currently, I think they're trying to disassemble the reactor very slowly, because if they move on accident, they could cause dust to go away and contaminate more stuff. Grade.
Onto the facility in 2013. So that's not good. Since 2011, though, the town does offer short and pretty damn cool tours of the abandoned city of Pripyat. The area, though, is still extremely unsafe, and it honestly won't be for quite a while. The areas by the reactors are practically hell on Earth. Even though I could talk about Chernobyl for hours, because honestly there's so much to talk about, but we do need to wrap this up. So guys, I thank you very much for watching. That's all for me right now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please let us know how we did on the video. If you really did like it, you can go ahead and share it with your friends if you think they should see it. It's awesome to talk to you guys. Honestly, guys, it is a pleasure to have this channel and be here with you guys. And like I said, oh no, I didn't say this before. Thank you guys so much for 25,000 subscribers. It's great, and I hope we can get to our ultimate goal of 100,000 subscribers eventually. And yeah, honestly, it's great, guys. Like I said, my name is Jake from Brighton Gaming. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you later. Why do I always turn British when I say later? Oh, cue the intro.
Wait, exploring abandoned area? Dude.
A new landmark property is...
What? Let's see.
New landmark property is coming to Paradise. Opening in 2009. Relish in your very own
What is that?
beachside villa, surrounded by luxury. Prepare to step into a resort and residence like no other.
Wait, Hummer went bankrupt? No. Hummer. What? That's what I'm saying. Hummer? Hummer is this car company. They make big cars. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say, in Chernobyl, a 2,000-ton lid was blasted off of the core, and it landed upside down. Wyatt, take my car, and do you know how much that lid weighed? That is the equivalent of 189 of my car. Like, if you took my car, and put together 178 more of my cars, that's how heavy this lid was. It was a heavy lid, and it got thrown up into the air, and it landed on its side. That's how much nuclear power has. Like, that's how much energy is conserved within it, because it just blows that heavy lid right off the reactor, and it lands on its side. That's scary. In my opinion, nuclear technology is a thing to respect. Radiation, you must respect its dangers. It commands it. Abandoned explorations? I want to see abandoned explorations. abandoned rubber
the
recycling.
drug-free sleep aid brand, made with clean ingredients for a better night's sleep. So you can make your next day your best day. Sleep
Dude.
tonight, live tomorrow with Natrol.
Shred.
Okay. The abandoned tunnels below the United States. Oh yeah, it's by Nikki Coley. This is how you know it's gonna get interesting. Give me a second, stream. Sorry if I keep just getting distracted. Try living with ADHD and then come talk to me. I have to move my charger again. Yesterday I found something pretty interesting. I found a 1916D wheat penny. Pretty uncommon, rare wheat penny. 1916D. Which there's only 36 million of them in circulation that were made. Rare wheat penny. I got a good find. I found 1924 rainbow eyes wheat penny. A wheat penny which occurred a rare error of a penny that causes this tint to become colorized like a rainbow. I wonder if I can replicate that with bismuth. A bismuth coated wheat penny. Interesting. I want to try that one day. I want to try to coat a penny with bismuth. A chemical element that reacts in the form of temperature and color. Its temperature huh? What? I don't even know what you're talking about. If I could work with bismuth and I could temperature it correctly, I can make a rainbowized penny, a replica of it. I will say, if you find a 1910s, 1920s wheat penny, and it has a mint mark on it, those are pretty uncommon. For example, sorry, sheep. Like, watch this. 1915, right? 1950, or 1913, right? 1913 Philadelphia wheat pennies are 77 million. Ready for 1913D? 16 million. 1913 P pennies, 77 million. 1913D, 16 million. And then San Francisco, 6 million. You see, in the early, like 1910s, 1920s pennies, especially ones with S mints, are pretty hard to come by. I don't have them in my collection yet. I have a book. I have all my wheat pennies, all the wheat pennies I could find booked, and I cannot find early 1910 and 20s mint marks.
What's always stood out to me about this film opening scene, text appears on a black screen and reads, "There are thousands of miles of tunnels beneath the United States, abandoned subway systems, unused service routes, and deserted mine shafts. Many have no known purpose at all." Now, I'm gonna be real. This shit got me jazzed up when I first saw this movie. Like, what a lead.
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
I got even more excited when
Assassin.
I found out that this statement is actually true. Deep below our feet are miles of infrastructure, abandoned projects, and tunnels just lying there, unseen and unthought of by the world. But my question is, are these structures really abandoned, or is there something sinister happening below us?
Underground tunnels, in my opinion, if they're like roadways, I'm gonna guess like nuclear, anti-nuclear tunnels?
Ohio aimed to become one of the first cities in the United States to create a subway system. Tunnels were dug in preparation for its creation, and by the mid-1920s, the entirety of the tunnel was dug and solidified. The project was so far along that station platforms were even built. And at this point, it seemed that Cincinnati was on the cusp of becoming a model city for rapid transportation. However, just as things started looking up for the project, it all came crashing down. The Great Depression made funding for the project impossible.
Oh yeah, Great Depression was so bad. Even if you actually go pick up 1920s wheat pennies, they have quality issues because of the mint. They went broke. They couldn't make pennies to the best of their ability. It's like, I'm sorry again, stream. Like, let's look at the history of wheat pennies. Like, let's see, like 1926 wheat penny, which is before Depression, 157 million. Like 1930, 157 million. Exact same. Holy crap. 1930. Let's go 36. 310 million. Alexa, when did the Great Depression happen? 20s, 30s?
The Great Depression by DMX was released on October 23rd,
Alexa,
2001.
What time in history did the Great Depression happen?
Here's something I found on Wikipedia. The Great Depression was a severe worldwide economic depression that took place during the 1930s. The timing of the Great Depression varied across nations. In most countries it started in 1929 and lasted until the late 1930s.
Yeah, like, let's see, like 1929, 187 million wheat pennies. Holy crap, like 1930, Wyatt? 1930, 157 million wheat pennies. 1931, 19 million. 1932, 9 million. 1933, 14 million. 1934, 219 million. So 31, 32, and 33 wheat pennies, even Philadelphia ones are rare. Under 50 million of them were made, if all combined. That's actually insane. When the mint starts reducing the amount of pennies minted, that's how you know that an economy is about to crash. If not even they can make pennies, that's how you know you're screwed.
We ran out before the tracks were ever laid. The project was abandoned after this and left to rot below the city that once bet its future on it. The nearly 3-mile abandoned subway station is currently the largest of its kind in the United States, but it is nowhere near the only one. The Great Depression and other economic low points caused major cities in the U.S. to abandon their subway projects for good, leaving the half-completed projects to rot. Now today it is believed that a solid percentage of the abandoned infrastructure below us is made up of these subway tunnels. And when you have these abandoned subway systems and abandoned tunnels beneath the earth, it's not like you can just fill them up and get rid of them. I mean, trying to demolish them at that point would just be dangerous to anyone living above them. So for that reason, many of them remain there to this day, completely forgotten by society. So for me, this is a terrifying thought. Just the idea of these big tunnels just below us with no purpose and being totally unguarded. Like, it is very unsettling to think about. But when it comes to abandoned underground infrastructure, there is much more than just subways. In the mid-1800s, gold was discovered in California, sending the nation into a frenzy. The gold rush brought hundreds of thousands of people from all over.
When?
In the mid-1800s.
Oh yeah, actually, the reason you wanna know what happened because of the gold rush and all the metals rushings? The government decided to put the San Francisco Mint. Actually, San Francisco Mint went through 3 buildings. I visited one of them. The first is like the very, very old mint. That one's now like an old building. Then they have the old mint, or the Granite Lady, although it's made out of limestone and it's not made out of granite. And then they have the brand new mint, which was opened back in like 1930. And you want to know something insane about the old mint? It held a third of all the United States' wealth at one point. And it doesn't sound like that's insane. A third of the United States' money was stored in the Granite Lady at one point. If that is not, if that does not scream like insane to you, I don't know what does. Like that, economically, that is insane. Basically, what the gold rush did with all the silver and stuff, they would sell it to the mint and they'd melt it down and make coins. But now they don't really do that anymore, as we just buy our metals somewhere else.
From all over the country to search for their fortune in the Golden State. But as many would soon find out, the gold rush was well overhyped, and there was not nearly enough gold being discovered to sustain the huge influx of people. Decades later, many of the mines set up to find the gold were decommissioned and abandoned, much like the subway projects discussed previously. All in all, 47,000 mines were left abandoned in California alone, just because of this gold rush, almost all of which are lying dormant there to this day. So again, a little unsettling that these structures are just kind of there still. But to me, this is nowhere near the creepiest structures that lie below us. During the Cold War, the anxiety of a nuclear attack gripped onto the nation. With this in mind, thousands of fallout shelters were created below ground, some of which big enough to fit thousands of citizens within their walls. Obviously, the fear of a nuclear attack has since subsided, and this has left these shelters with little to no purpose at all. It is believed that over 200,000 of these shelters were left from the Cold War alone, with many more being abandoned from other points in history. And these shelters aren't just like little doomsday shelters. I mean, the size of them was crazy. Like, I was reading about one example where there was a full school underground in case of a nuclear attack. Now, these examples don't explain all the infrastructure below us, but it does give us an idea as to why at least some of it is there. But the truth is, some tunnels were dug with no purpose at all, and some had hidden intentions that the public could never know about. But what the majority of them have in common is the fact that they are all technically abandoned now. And with no one looking after these shelters, with no one guarding them, I'm left wondering if there are actually sinister things happening below us going completely undetected.
Who's down there?
The truth about this whole subterranean landscape is that there are so many unmanned places that people could be living in. And though the idea of people living underground may seem like a stretch, it's actually a very real thing.
Oh yeah.
They're called mole people.
Yeah, they are. There are people. It's not like a creepypasta. They're not like horrifying creatures, but there's actually people who just live underground. Yeah, they're called mole people. It's very normal.
And they are much more than just a fictional group. Mole people are described as being homeless people who are taking shelter within abandoned infrastructure underground. Not only have these people been written about extensively, but they have also been filmed multiple times and even interviewed in some cases.
I got a message for you. We believe that Jesus is coming. Oh yeah?
You have electricity you're set up, so like no rent to pay, right?
That's a blessing.
And how do you get electricity?
You take it for all the way in the back.
Tell me what you have in your fridge. Yeah.
Now for me, I would describe someone like this as a shallow mole person. This is someone who only lives a few feet below the surface and can easily access the outside world. And honestly, it seems like this wouldn't even be that bad of a thing, especially for a homeless person. But my question is, do these mole people travel deeper?
No kidding. How deep do these guys live?
I mean, just think about it. This underground landscape is an unmonitored, lawless terrain. You don't have cops down there. You don't have rules down there. And you can get away with practically anything. And the deeper you go, the truer this sentiment becomes. So what's stopping criminals from moving into these hidden structures? I mean, it seems like this would be the perfect place for them. They can hide from law enforcement and also do whatever they want down there, including more criminal activity. And to an extent, this is something that has actually happened throughout our world before. In Europe, mob bosses have been discovered hiding out in underground bunkers beneath some major cities. Those who were eventually caught were able to hide without detection for years. So who is to say that the same thing isn't happening here in the States? High-end criminals could be hiding in bunkers, while low-level criminals could be hiding in abandoned subways. It's free real estate that doesn't leave a single trace and goes totally undetected. And the idea of this actually sounds somewhat sustainable to me. I mean, you hide below the surface for long periods of time, and you only have to come up when you need to get supplies. So you can stock up, go well below the surface, and never be seen by anyone. It is already known that some drug dealers have smuggle tunnels where they carry their drugs across long distances with little chance of being detected, proving that some of these structures are in fact used for illegal practices. But what about other criminals, like murderers? In a way,
no
these
kidding. Yeah,
structures
they
are
could just dip under these old tunnels and
they could murder someone and hide underground, then travel for miles without detection to another spot to commit another murder, and just repeat the cycle. You have a foolproof place to hide, and the tunnels would provide a hidden way to travel. Also, not to mention the fact that you can murder someone well below the ground,
and no one would know.
Probably ever find out about.
Like, unless if there's a person who like didn't really interact with society a whole lot, you could just take it down to the underground, murder them, dispose the body down there. No one would ever know. That's scary. Like, you would literally just be forgotten.
Now this hunch could simply be labeled as a conspiracy theory, because the truth is I really don't have any facts to back this up. But I'm really questioning how this could not be true, at least on a small scale. I mean, if you wanted to hide from the police, why wouldn't you go below the ground where they would likely never find you? I don't know, am I crazy for thinking that? But another idea that I've become recently fascinated with is the idea that cults have been taking their practices underground in order to secretly practice their twisted faiths. Cults alone are creepy enough, and some that have extreme ideologies are disbanded after their beliefs reach law enforcement. So in order to avoid this, some have taken their cults underground in order to practice away from the reach of outsiders. In 2012, a cult had been discovered for contact from the outside world. The group had been hiding there without detection for an entire decade. Making this case even more shocking is the fact that 27 children were discovered along with the group. Each child was locked in a cell with no electricity and had lived the majority, if not all of their life, in this inhospitable condition. This case serves as a reminder of just how different the underground world is. If this had been happening above ground, the religion wouldn't last a day. People would catch on and the police would be all over it. But because it was underground, they were able to avoid detection for a whole decade. Now just
That's
picture
insane.
this. Imagine if a bunker like this had been hidden in some farmland in some obscure state like Idaho. No offense. But if something like this were happening there, nobody would ever find out. I mean, it's just impossible to monitor underground like that. And if you really were that far away from society to begin with, and then took it underground, the world would never know. Now, although the idea of cults and murderers living below us is just kind of a theory of mine right now, this next idea is one that I'm pretty sure is true. Some believe that lying below our feet here in the United States are secret military bases set up to be completely undetectable so that classified information won't get out. Some believe these hidden bases are used to deal with extraterrestrial life. This is due to the high level of secrecy surrounding these bases. Their purposes and locations are completely unknown, but the secrecy...
But here's the problem about the theory, you know. The construction workers that had to build this, wouldn't it get out from them? I don't know. I think so.
...has led many people to believe that they are dealing with something big. Perhaps this is alien life, or secret technology, or just something completely new to us all. All that I know is that it makes me anxious just thinking about it. So with all this being said, here's what we're left with. There are so many abandoned structures below us that the majority of them are unmonitored and unthought of. The idea of murderers living here, and even cults calling these structures home, is something that has happened and may be happening here in the United States as we speak.
There's a rule of life. If it can happen, it's happening or it has happened.
Bases that have no
I believe there's gotta be. If it can happen once, it can happen again. I believe that it could very well be happening. There could be cults underground. You never know.
But is this something that we should really be afraid of? Truthfully, I don't think so. Okay, sure, criminals may be hiding below us, but they're hiding for a reason. Chances are these people do not want to be seen, and they want to be far away from society so that they don't get caught. And I doubt that they would run the risk just to randomly come by and murder you specifically. And as for cults, sure, the idea is terrifying, but it's kind of the same thing with the murderers. They're practicing down there to be secluded from outsiders. That's the whole point of them being there. Now, I'm not saying that wrongdoings aren't happening down there, because that may be a likely possibility, and that's certainly something that we should care about and worry about. But the selfish truth of it is that if you're watching this video, you're probably not going to be affected by that. Now, the one that still stresses me out is the idea of government bases lying below us. But it's one of those things, even if we had all the details about it, and even if we raised a big deal about it, we wouldn't be able to really do anything. It's interesting and it's creepy, but I guess at the end of the day, it's not really something worth stressing about. Sure, we can look into it, we can take interest to it, but I don't think it's worth being afraid of. So no, I don't think that we should be afraid of how this will affect us, and if you choose to stay above ground, then chances are you probably won't be affected by anything below you. But if you're brave enough to go underground and explore one of these abandoned places, just be wary of the evil that might inhabit them. And remember, there's a reason why this evil is hiding.
That city devastated. Oh my god, it's the infamous 2020 Beirut port. I can't roll my chair. Oh my god, come on.
Since the 1880s. It has a long and interesting history, with it playing an important role during the Lebanese Civil War. After the war, and as the city began to rebuild itself, and as the country started the process of reconciliation, the port would go on to become one of the largest and busiest on the Eastern Mediterranean. So ships come and go, freight is loaded and unloaded. All pretty standard fare for a harbour. Another not unheard of thing is that of ship abandonment, where vessels come into port, the owners disavow their property, and often the crew are left high and dry. The lucky ones usually get to bugger off, but sometimes some poor souls are left aboard. That would be the similar situation of a cargo ship entering the port of Beirut on the 21st of November 2013. The ship's name is the MV Rosas. She is a 1900 gross ton cargo ship, built in 1986 in Naruto, Japan. Originally as a dredger named Daifuku Maru No. 8, but over the years she changed hands, names, and even changed use to her final form as a cargo vessel. Her final owner was Russian businessman Igor Grechuskin from 2012.
Why is every Russian name end in like OV or SKI?
As she was now known, flew
do you notice that? Like Kalashnikov.
This was Grechuskin's first go
like that's
on
no.
ship, and it wasn't going to go so well. In July 2013, the MV Rosas was held up by Spanish authorities in the port of Seville. She was falling apart and was not the most reliable. She was set sail once again and be chartered to transport 2,000.
You know what I'm gonna do that I wasn't gonna plan on doing? I'm gonna make an overhead garden on the school. This school is gonna be, it's the best school building I've ever built.
LLC, a Georgian fertilizer maker. It was to be shipped from Georgia.
Okay, let me explain to you what the heck is ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is often used as a fertilizer. However, there's one bad thing about ammonium nitrate. It is notoriously explosive. And it destroys whatever you put it in front of. Ready? I don't. Alright, time to close all these trapdoors. You hear that, or are you... Oh, never mind.
The Explosivos Mozambique in Matola, Mozambique. By the 27th of September, the MV Rosas was loaded up and ready to depart from Batami. She set sail, stopping at various ports along the way towards the Suez Canal. On the 21st November 2013, she entered the port of Beirut. You see, the ship was having financial issues. With worries, the owner did not have enough funds to pay the Suez Canal toll. The ship's owner had found another shipment of cargo that would be dropped off along the way to Mozambique. Perfect. This would pay for that pesky Suez fee. But there was a small snag. The MV Rosas importing cargo hatches were rusty and weak, and, as Captain Boris Prokofiev would later say to the BBC in an interview, the hatches were buckled and weak, so we couldn't take it. We refused. You see, refusing the cargo came with a fine the owner refused to pay, and on top of that, port fees. As such, the MV Rosas was impounded. All but 4 of the crew managed to flee the ship and escape back to their home country of Ukraine. The remaining crew, including the captain, would be stuck aboard the ship for around a year, when, after selling some of its fuel to hire a lawyer, managed to secure their own release. But the MV Rosas stayed in port. The owner had claimed to be bankrupt, and the cargo owners by now had lost interest. As such, she stayed in Beirut. But not just the vessel stayed. Her explosive materials aboard also sat there. The cargo was brought ashore in 2014 and placed in a building named Hangar 12. Over the years, the cargo was sit, and the MV Rosas, still moored in port, would eventually take on water and sink. But although financially damaging for the ship's owner, the MV Rosas' cargo was now one big of a headache for Lebanese customs officials. They had essentially now got to house a 2,750-ton bomb. Officials trying to find someone to offload the literal ticking time bomb off to, by sending out letters to judges requesting a resolution to the issue. In July 2020, Lebanon's High Defense Council informed President Aoun that there were dangerous materials in Beirut's port. He immediately ordered military and security agencies to do what was needed in order to remove them safely. But sadly, the cargo would languish inside Hangar 12 until disaster would strike in August that same year.
Man, that was like the 1/20th equivalent of the explosion.
It is the 4th of August 2020.
1/20th equivalent of the nuke dropped over Nagasaki.
That was the home.
That was a big explosion too.
Tons of ammonium nitrate. The same building had also been home to a stash of fireworks. At around 1745, sparks landed on the pile of fireworks, and this started a small fire. A team of firefighters were dispatched. Upon arrival, just 10 minutes later, the hangar was emitting strange noises, and the fire was getting increasingly more intense. An explosion rang out at an estimated yield of between 1.5 and 2.5 tons of TNT. This was at 1807. Fireworks flashed and sparked as Hangar 12 showed some signs of damage. 33 to 35 seconds later, a much larger explosion erupted from the hangar. Some estimated it at 1.1 kilotons of TNT.
That's a big boom right there.
Some 150 miles away in Cyprus. The shockwave blasted out into the city of Beirut. An orangey-red cloud descended upon
that sucks because Lebanon was being devastated by the pandemic, and that just added on top of the suffering.
It was severely damaged, leaving the country with less than 1 month's supply of grain. Multiple buildings, including 3 hospitals, were obliterated. Buildings within a 6-mile radius suffered varying levels of damage, leaving around 300.
I remember when that happened. I couldn't believe it. Like, you know, when you see a giant explosion like that in the city, it's like something out of a movie. But like, that's real, man. That was insane. I remember my dad saying, "Dude, look, a big explosion happened across the world." I'm like, "What?" And he shows me, I'm like, "Holy hell!"
By pulling people out of the damaged buildings any working vehicle in and around the port area was used for emergency transport for injured people. In total, 75 ambulances and 375 medics were dispatched to assist the injured and trapped. Local businesses offered food and medical supplies where they could, and the international community arranged help for the city, including the Netherlands, Turkey and the UK, also sending search and rescue teams. A day after the explosion, Prime Minister Hassan Diab declared a 2-week state of emergency, and the government launched an investigation into the explosion. Over the coming weeks, debris would be disposed of by local residents as they tried to rebuild their lives, and several hotels were opened up to house the displaced. Eventually, the death toll would become apparent. A surprisingly low but still tragic number of roughly 218, with another 7,000 injured. Included in the dead was the original team of firefighters dispatched to the original firework fire. The city, like many across the world at this point in 2020, was already feeling the financial pinch with COVID shortages. As such, it hit the country hard financially, with an estimated cost of around $15 billion. The investigation. Now, usually at this point in the video, I go over the investigation where those responsible are identified. But with the Beirut disaster, the investigation was, and is, shall we say, less than ideal. The government formed an investigative committee led by Prime Minister Hassan Diab, although he would resign from his job on the 10th of August 2020. A day after the explosion, 16 Beirut port officials who had overseen the storage of the material in the first few days. Interpol were also asked to detain the Russian ship's owner and the captain, and red notices were issued. Judge Fadi Sawan was appointed to head up the investigation. He started summoning various ministers, and surprise, surprise, he would be relieved of his position in February 2021, with Tariq Baital taking over the same month. The investigation would soon fall into infighting across the country's political lines. Prime Minister Diab and 3 former ministers were also charged with negligence over the Beirut port explosion. The investigation ground to a halt because higher-ups in the Lebanese government were immune to investigations, and by early 2023 all suspects had been released. And it was looking like the investigation wouldn't carry on, but surprisingly, Tariq Baital resumed his work in March 2023. He would bring charges against Lebanon's most senior prosecutor, but so far it hasn't led to anything substantial, meaning the investigation is still ongoing at the time of writing this script in mid-2023. The investigation, or lack of, has created...
It's hard to believe it happened all those years ago. Like, that felt like a long time ago. But that was really recent.
The city would go on to rebuild, but in 2022, the grain silo, which had taken a significant portion of the explosion, caught alight and collapsed. The disaster showed how deadly ammonium nitrate can be when ignored. Most of the players in the disaster had just not really appreciated the bomb they had in Hangar 12. And this is all too common as we see across the world with ammonium nitrate explosions. This is a Playdifful production. All videos on the channel are Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike licensed. Playdifful videos are produced by me, John, in a currently, because it's night time, cold and dark southern corner of London, UK. I have YouTube members and patrons, so thank you very much for your financial support, and the rest of you who tune in every week to listen and watch me talk. I have Instagram and Twitter, where I post up behind the scenes photographs and the like, and I also have a second channel.
The Grenfell Tower disaster.
And all that's left to say is
2017. Cutting costs. I don't know what I'm being advertised. Help.
Yeah, hello, hi, in the fire, flat 16 Great Tower.
This is in England.
Flat 16 Great Tower.
You know, because back over the ponds in England and the Ireland, they call it the fire brigade, not the fire department.
January 1925, and an old retired field marshal takes his last breath. Throughout his career, death and destruction was a necessary evil. Spanning nearly 50 years, he has achieved many accolades. With many battles under his belt and the high rank of Field Marshal, it is often customary for the person's legacy to extend beyond their family and be recognised in the naming of roads and buildings. You see, the person we're talking about is only linked to this week's video in name, but the name would become a byword for neglect, tragedy, and the ever-looming spectre of brutalist high-rise apartment blocks that litter British cities. That man's name was Field Marshal Francis Wallace Grenfell. His name is remembered not for his actions on the battlefields of British colonialism, but instead a horrific building fire in the 2010s. Welcome to Plenty Difficult. My name is John, and today we're looking at the Grenfell Tower disaster.
My coworker watches this channel. I saw him watching the channel. I'm like, yes! It's called Plenty Difficult.
Background. Our story begins nearly 50 years after
Massive shout out. This guy's pretty good.
With a need also common. That is housing. A need that would drive the UK to source quickly and easily built residential buildings. No more requiring social housing.
You want to know how you quickly put apartment buildings? Britain, just use structure blocks, bro. I mean, why do you just not use structure blocks? Imagine not using structure blocks. Sorry, I had to make that joke.
Arguably was the nation's capital. One such development was the infamous Roman Point, out towards the eastern end of London's vast metropolitan area. But
I don't know if you can make specific creeper farms.
This would be in the borough of Kensington and Chelsea, near Notting Hill, to the east of.
It'll spawn other mobs as a byproduct, though.
Here on a map. In 1964, plans were proposed for redeveloping the slums of Nottingham.
However, I think I know how to make mob farms faster. Turtle eggs. Turtle eggs. Here's the problem. Mobs, they don't like to fall down. Oh crap! I have to close all these trapdoors. Mobs do not like to. They'll kind of like linger on the layers of mob farms. So here's how you can fix that. Put turtle eggs. I've noticed that anything will go through turtle eggs, making it an easy thing to exploit. Yes, I literally saw a skeleton try to shoot a baby turtle. Everything hates turtles. Baby turtles. But, you can make it creeper-proof by, of course, making cats. You just gotta put cats in the corner and keep them there.
Into a modern and brutalist social housing estate. These were all the rage in the 1960s, where London was still redeveloping after the destruction caused during the Second World War. The plan from architects Clifford Weirden and Peter Deakins was to build a housing estate, shopping piazza, and a new Latimer Road London Underground station. To connect all the buildings, which would include a couple of tower blocks and a few smaller residential buildings, elevated walkways were planned, thus hiding vehicle traffic from view. The newly reborn, in 1965, Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea did not show much interest in creating two-storey roads. I'm still trying to decide whether this was a good or bad concept. Probably bad, as history has shown we aren't very good at maintaining concrete infrastructure. As anyone who has ever had to rely on the Hammersmith flyover, I have never needed to drive down there recently. Well, long story short, the new estate was to be less innovative after the council refused some of the more modernist concepts. But it didn't mean that it was a cookie-cutter estate. It did have some interesting features. Deakins had previously helped with the designs of the Barbican housing estate, as well as the Golden Lane estate. So by now he was a bit of a brutalist design veteran. The plans would end up being scaled back when London
I never work on
Transport
Fridays,
saw
I told you
no
that.
need of building a new station, but the main tower block was retained.
Yes.
It would be named after a field marshal, Mr. Grenfell.
On Saturdays, I work at 9 to 1.
For the main tower on the Lancaster Road.
In September, I will be resuming Sunday job
As such,
work.
Grenfell would be built with an attention to strength. The idea was for the building to last well over 100 years.
I mean,
to achieve this,
I could try. I could try to say, hey, insert boss's name here. Can I take Saturday off and work another day? I could probably try to do that.
Electricity. Coming out to the core were external.
It's unlikely because I like to actually work there and get money.
For hot water. This was situated in the basement and fed the whole housing development. Construction for phase 1 would begin in 1970, with Grenfell seeing initial works beginning in 1972. The building would be 67.3 meters tall, or 221 feet tall, and originally contained
Have you seen my stream?
121 used for residential.
Oh my god.
Being used for non-residential.
If you don't remember, the old school in Abbott City was all brick and it was ugly and small. This one is all like colored terracotta concrete hybrid design for a modernistic feel with flowers, and not just the ground level flowers. I'm talking like flower areas in the on the levels. Like there's like wall potted flowers. Oh, I just kicked over my Welch's box.
With the flexibility of accommodation, all internal partition walls were not structural. This could allow for reconfiguration later on, something pretty handy for a local authority. Because of its flexibility, it was slightly unusual from other tower blocks of a similar vintage. And this was because it allowed the flats per floor to be 6 instead of the more common 4. The floors contained a 2-bedroom flat at each corner, which was the standard arrangement for the time. But in between, on the east and west face, was a smaller 1-bedroom flat. Externally, the building comprised horizontal structural concrete spandrel panels, sliding aluminium framed windows, and non-structural white window infill panels. The tower was completed in 1974, and soon after opening its doors, the council started welcoming families to their new home.
Hyundai Santa Cruz versus Ford Maverick. Look what Santa Cruz has.
I'm gonna be surprised. That's the brands I don't really not a big fan of. Ford, Hyundai, and Kia.
Grenfell and its refurbishments and updates. As with most buildings throughout its life, it would undergo a number of modifications. One such was in 1985 with the replacing of front doors to the flats to self-closing fire-resistant types. In the 1990s, in an effort to combat rising crime, a key fob system was installed, meaning in theory only residents could access the building. Between 2011 and 2013, the fire doors were again replaced with more modern compliant ones. Talking about fire, we need to discuss the design theory, and thus fire safety theory, prevalent in the UK when Grenfell was built. You see, there was a glaring issue with high-rise blocks, which Ronan Point highlighted, but it was known before. That was a fire. If there's a fire, say here, how can anyone get out safely? Well, how about if you don't need to get out at all? In theory, if the flat is fire resistant enough, then occupants can sit it out until help arrives. This was mentioned in the 1962 British Standard Code of Practice, number 3, chapter 4, Precautions Against Fire. The assumption should no longer be that buildings must be evacuated if a fire occurs, and high-rise residential buildings should, therefore, be designed so that occupants of a floor above a dwelling which is on fire may, if they choose, remain safely on their own floor. It may be necessary to evacuate the floor once a fire occurs, and in some circumstances, those floors which are in the immediate vicinity of the fire. But the occupants of these floors should be free to reach safety in any other part of the building via the staircase. This would be known as the stay put strategy.
I like making, what's it called? Oh.
Which, in the event of a fire elsewhere in the building, the occupants are advised to remain in their own flats unless they are directly affected by fire, heat or smoke. All of this is fine and well as long as the building is actually fire resistant. The thinking behind the strategy...
What is that, Fahrenheit 451, dog? Like what?
The building would hinder fire and rescue efforts, as well as the risk of a potential of a staircase crash event. Think a mini Ibrox 1971. But again, it is really dependent on the actual building. Now, there were issues with tower blocks of this era, and one such is the single staircase. Now, the tower block had had a few upgrades through its life, but after 40 years of overlooking Latimer Road, it was time for a major overhaul and refurbishment. This came around with a planning permission request in 2012. Around the same time, Leadbetter Construction Limited was appointed as lead contractor, but before works began in June 2014, Royden Maintenance Limited was eventually appointed for design and build contractor. This was because they undercut in price. The works were to include repurposing some of the previously uninhabited levels of the tower. These were the lower couple of levels. It would result in the creation of 9 new flats. This would also include structural work. In addition to this, a newer, more efficient heating and smoke extraction system were to be employed, as well as renewed services piping and upgrades to the tower's lifts. But the main thing, at least to any passers-by that would see the whole building, was that it was to be reclad, receive new windows, and generally receive a more modern, fresher external appearance. Essentially, the tower was to get an entirely new external wall attached to the original concrete facade. This would, in theory, add to building insulation, thus improving efficiency. The cladding also offered a modernised look to the tower, hiding away the arguably dated brutalist facade. After all, it was an eyesore in the line of sight of the trendy and expensive Notting Hill. Okay, I'm being a little bit facetious, but improved external looks were one of the council's official goals. Royden subcontracted out to Harley Facades Limited for the external cladding work. Whilst we're on the subject, let's look at the cladding in greater detail. The external cladding was made up of several layers. Firstly, directly connected to the original external walls was PIR foam insulation, followed by a 2-inch cavity, and finished off with another layer of cladding in the form of ventilated rain screen panels made of aluminium composite material. The composite cladding was made of a 3mm thick core of polyethylene